Hello and welcome to The Real Sex Education After School. I'm Diggory Waite and I'm joined as ever by accredited sexual relationship therapist Cate Campbell. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Diggs.
Everyone, this is the show in which we take our lovely listeners' questions and we answer them. They're usually about sex and relationships, but, if you want to ask us other questions, you're also allowed to. About, I don't know, what your favourite flower is, Mum.
What?
What's your favourite flower?
Too many.
Too many? I haven't heard of that.
Listen, I've just had my garden destroyed by muntjac.
Okay.
So don't ask me about my favourite flowers because they've all gone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like muntjac is like a small little deer, isn't it? Sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. That is actually true. Sometimes when you speak to me, I'm like, oh dear, what is she talking about? A muntjac in the garden eating everything. And then, a couple of days later, the pictures emerge, and I'm like, oh my god, she is telling the truth. That's crazy.
What do you think? I'm making it up. I'm just.
It sounds mental.
How would you come up with that sort of? Oh, I'm just going to make a story about a muntjac eating all my. It's just so awful. It's absolutely.
I know, but it's
trampled everything to death. Everything's eaten. Everything's gone. I'm probably going to get Lyme disease. It's just.
Yeah.
Ugh.
As you can tell, listener, I've touched a nerve. But yeah. Listen, let's move swiftly on. So this is the question.
Home pride.
What's that?
Favourite flower.
Right. Okay, so here we go. We get questions from you. You can send them in, like this one was, this first one, which we're going to talk about, which I cannot wait for. I cannot wait to get your thoughts on this. They sent it in via our anonymous Google form. You can find the link to that in the bio of this episode and our social media channels. We are at the RSC Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Amazing. Just to say again on that anonymous Google form, Google will ask you for an email just so that you can submit it. We don't see that email. So these are totally anonymous. Someone did actually put their name in one of them. And from now on, it's anonymous. We're not going to include your name, even if you ask us to. Here we go. Strap in. It's a long one, but it's a good one. Hi, my long-term boyfriend, 7 years, has just come out to me as bisexual. We have a home together and have discussed marriage and kids, and only recently has there been a change in mood. I think this may be from external pressure of other friends getting engaged, etc. We are open with each other and have engaged in pegging, etc. However, he has opened up that as much as he loves me, he can't shift the feeling of wanting to be sure. He has admitted to wanting to sleep with a man. He has asked if this could be a threesome. However, my views are, at least initially, he needs to explore these feelings on his own without me being there, and in turn, looking to me for what my emotions are and act on this rather than his actual wants and his feelings. This is a very difficult situation for the both of us, and I have expressed my feeling that when he explores this further, he will know if he is bisexual or anything further, and that it would be unfair for both himself and I to repress any feelings that may develop. I would rather him explore these feelings now than 5 years down the line when we may have kids and are married and then have to deal with affairs, etc. I will support him through this, but also want to respect his privacy to friends and family, so find this very difficult as I can't discuss this. I am super pro LGBTQ+, which is why I've been so supportive that feelings should not be ignored. However, from my side, I'm very scared and upset that this could be the end of our relationship. Polyamory is not something I am open to. I've suggested we take a break in our relationship during this period so he does not hold any further guilt of cheating. We have our home together, so we'll still be living with each other during this time. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Am I doing the right thing by suggesting he sleep with a man by himself, or should I be more open to a threesome, knowing that there's a possibility I would be very upset with this? Very conflicted with thoughts and feelings at the moment. Woman, 29, straight, Essex, UK.
Well, I would definitely keep out of the bedroom with him when he's doing his experiments, because they're his experiments, not your experiments. He is bisexual, isn't he? Because he's attracted to men. So you already have the answer.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, let's deal with that part of the question. Do you have to act on something to be bisexual?
No, of course not. It's about attraction, isn't it? Not action.
It's about attraction, not action. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
But that is funny though, because I remember a friend of mine, she was attracted to girls. I kissed a few girls, actually went on a date with a few girls, and then one girl in particular had sex with this girl, and actually the act of doing that, she was like, I probably feel the less bisexual now I've ever felt, because actually I didn't really enjoy the sex part of it. Like, I mean, to quote her, she was like, I loved it when she was going down on me, but I didn't like going down on her. I didn't find it as fun. Meanwhile though, someone that she knew, I think it was a sister-in-law or something, did this big post on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff. She'd been straightly married for several years. She did this big post everywhere being like, I'm bisexual, coming out as bisexual. And she spoke to her and was like, have you kissed any girls? And she was like, not properly. Like, I've kissed friends and stuff when I was a kid. And she was like, okay, so have you kissed any girls? Have you had sex with any girls? And she was like, no. She was like, so you've just done this big bloody post on Facebook and big coming out, and you haven't been where I have? You haven't been down in the trenches? So I do think some people could take that view, as they did. But what you're saying is that's not what it's about. You don't have to do anything to prove it. The only person you're bisexual for is yourself. It's how you feel within yourself.
I know there's a distinction there. So I think there's a distinction between being turned on by seeing women doing things, doing sexual things, because women are more likely to identify with what the women are doing and be turned on by that. They're not actually necessarily turned on by the women themselves. Or the idea of doing the action. They identify with their pleasure, but they're not necessarily wanting to do that act themselves. That's the difference. So a lot of people are confused by their arousal and they think therefore they're bisexual. That's the difference. Whereas men don't tend to identify when they just want to do the thing. And you're a good example of that, not sexually, but when you used to watch TV as a child, you couldn't sit still. As soon as you saw something, you wanted to get up and act it out.
Yeah. And luckily I wasn't watching much porn. But sorry, that's not funny.
We weren't watching any porn.
No, exactly. But it's true. I couldn't get to the end of the film. I was like, I have to go and, like, for example, I'd be watching Doctor Who probably, and I'd be like, well, I'm not going to see how this episode ends because I'm going to go and play out the ending myself with my toys. So, do you have to act on something to be bisexual? No. But the difference is he said he does want to have sex with a man.
And I mean, he might do it and not like it. That's possible. It could happen.
Yeah. Like my friend.
Yeah, but it still might not change the fact that he's because a lot of people have straight sex and don't like it, but they still want to do it. They kind of persevere. And I'm not sure whether that's a good or a bad thing, but they do it. They do that. And I mean, if you think an awful lot of people, probably the majority, have not had a great first sexual experience, or penetrative sexual experience, and yet they do it again.
Yeah.
And so, you can't take, I did it and I didn't like it as evidence that person is never ever going to do it again, or, that they're not bisexual or whatever, because they might change their minds. So, yeah, I mean, I think she sounds super rational.
Oh,
very grown up about this.
Oh my God, yeah. This is crazy.
And I'm sure there's a maelstrom of emotion underneath all that.
Yeah, exactly.
She says very upset. Very sensible to be dealing with it now and not further down the line. Clear that she clear about what she doesn't want a polyamorous relationship. And if you don't want a polyamorous relationship, don't get into threesomes.
Don't force it.
Don't do something you don't want.
And the threesome thing. Are you saying that you're like, if you're not into polyamory, don't try any threesomes.
Well, no, I mean, she's doing this because she wants to keep the relationship with him. That's not a reason to do it, is what I mean.
Right.
And he'll still say, "Oh, I wonder what it would be like, having sex on my own with somebody." And what could happen if she was into the other guy? How would he feel? I mean, there's so much.
Yeah,
there's so much.
The politics of a threesome often, even if it doesn't go wrong, because I've heard people talk about not this specific thing, but just threesomes in general, and there is always that like, oh, what if that I see this person having sex with that person, and then actually they're loving it, and then I feel really jealous, or vice versa,
exactly. You have to really, really think about that.
You got to really think about it, and I'm not saying they're always bad. Absolutely not. But there is a risk that they can be bad. And so with this situation, which already sounds quite fraught, I wouldn't chuck that into the ring. So the threesome thing, one of my questions was, should she do the threesome thing? Because that's what she's asking. She's like, maybe I should do it.
No.
We don't think so. I think that's our advice.
No.
How about that? It's a no.
That absolutely. And she's clear about what she does and doesn't want. Now, it may well be, I mean, she says she wants to continue a relationship with him. So absolutely, you can see where you are on the other side of this. And there's no reason why you can't continue a relationship, but it might not be the same kind of relationship. I mean, whatever happens, this could be your best friend forever. Wow. You've been through a lot together, and it might be that he gets it out of his system and that's the end of it. But chances are, if he likes it, it won't be out of his system. He's not going to say, well, I've tried that, I'll never do it again. He might. but you can't rely on it. So if you're thinking, well, this could pop up again in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time, and it's a possibility, then maybe, you don't want a polyamorous relationship. You don't want him to have sex with men if you're going to get married or whatever it is. Then maybe it's not the relationship for you, but in terms of marriage. But we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
It might well be that you change your mind, he changes his mind. It could well be that this is your best friend forever, and it's really good. One thing I would say, don't live together while he's doing this.
No, I don't think so.
It's just like torture.
Yeah, I think so. Because what are you doing? Sneaking around each other or being like, oh, do you mind actually staying out tonight just because I've got someone coming? I mean, all of that stuff. Even if you've got a spare room, it's not, it doesn't feel
I've
right.
seen so many couples recently that have tried this and done this. And honestly, I swear it does not work. It's awful. Don't torture yourself.
Yeah, it's even just because we talk about this a lot, but the current economic situation, so many couples are sort of, forced to live together for longer. They've signed up to live together, or they have a house together. And they just have to make it work, even though they're like divorced or separated or whatever. Not saying this is the case here, but trying to conduct that just like your own new life, but with the ghost of your own relationship walking around in the form of your ex. Like, I don't know, all of that's bad. But can I just quickly go back to what you were saying before? Because what you're saying is, yes, you can do this, and they can have the space to explore this part of them. And it might be something that they try and they go, hey, that was nice, whatever. Or it might be something they try and go, you know what, to be fair, I do want to do more of that. So what you suggest to this person is, go ahead with that, but just both of you need to have a conversation about that and what could happen afterwards. You need to be like, this is in a sense a sort of 50-50. This could spell the end of the relationship as we know it now. It could mean that we're best friends forever afterwards, but it could mean that we're married afterwards and that was fine. But it could just
mean all sorts of things. But we have to remember, relationships are a form of self-development. Keep saying that. And it could well be that this lovely lady has facilitated this guy's ability to be himself, to embrace his feelings, and that without this relationship, he would never have known he was bisexual. It could well be that she's allowed that to happen either at all or earlier than it would have done. And that's something to be super proud of. That they've done. I'm getting all teary thinking about it.
Listen, the one thing I want to make absolutely clear is the person whoever you are, you're listening to this now, the person who's messaged in, oh my God, you are the most amazing person in the world. That you are not only entertain this, but it feels
you're
like
starting.
I am starting because I'm.
If you can see us on YouTube, it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, but I just can't believe
it. Doing this a lot lately.
I know. Yeah. This is becoming the real sob education. But I just think, you reread the words that you've written and it's just like it doesn't even sound like the question is, should I be doing this? The question is almost like, oh, I'm going to let this person who I love explore this, even though I want to marry this person, I want to have kids with this person, and I'm willing to put all of that on the line for them. Your love knows no bounds. It's amazing. But that almost makes you want to pull all this back and ask the question, should she be doing this?
Well, if she doesn't do it, it's going to come up at some other point in the future.
Do you think?
Once the box is open, I get, you can't, it's difficult to close it again. I mean, we're talking about repressing feelings and there's always going to be that doubt. And I think this is also a form of self-development for the writer here. And maybe having this relationship and having to give it up is part of what she needs to do. Or for some reason, I mean, maybe there's some other relationship in her life that she had to give up unwillingly or willingly, at some point earlier, And if there's any sort of loss in there, maybe this is a way of doing it again, but this time with control. And that happens to a lot of people, and that is a very important part of a lot of relationships. And actually, the people that do that do tend to have very, very, very good and lasting relationships with that person going forward. And, if you think about it, if relationships are a form of self-development and we're much more open to ending relationships now than staying in unhappy ones and, continuing to look after ourselves going forward, then you are likely to have more than one future relationship. It's possible. Or maybe you've done all the work you need now and the next person you meet is going to be the one. if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
But, it's possible you could have a lot more relationships, but this guy may well be there throughout all of them as your best friend and someone who understands because he knows you so well. Because I'm going to start again. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
And because, and is somebody that really understands you and, you've given him a gift.
Yeah.
So, and perhaps he's given you one too. And do not, whatever happens, do not see this as failure. It's absolute success.
This is the biggest success. Again, even just reading this question, I'm like, you're an incredible success. Okay, but just to say, for people, if some people will listen to that and they were like, oh, I want to hear more about what she was saying now, I didn't quite have the full context, go back and listen to our episode called The 3 Reasons You're Attracted to Someone. That goes into more detail as to relationships being a form of self-development, relationships maybe mirroring some past relationships you've had. That's what Mum was saying about the loss and sort of reliving that again. So that with partners in today, so you can right the wrongs back then. Anyway, let's park that. Let me just ask you again. I need you to answer the question straight. Ooh. Okay? Because what
do I need to answer straight? We're talking about bisexuality here.
Well, because this is the thing. Okay, I've got sort of 2 things based on what you've just said there. Is because now it still feels like we are talking about potentially, he might just be bi. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to end. Maybe he goes away, he has sex with a couple of guys.
She doesn't want a polyamorous relationship. That suggests that she doesn't want him to be having sex with men in the future.
But you can be bisexual and, have had sex with
No.
men,
I mean,
then
that's what, he might say, okay, I've got it out of my system. I don't want to, I don't have to do it anymore. But actually, so for a lot of people, the feeling that they are sexual in some way, they need to do something to reinforce that feeling of identity. Yeah. So it might be, watching gay porn or something like that. It might be having gay friends. It might be moving in gay circles, going to gay clubs or something like that. And no sex enters into it. But my guess is that it will, even if, he means well and wants it not to, but it may well continue once. I mean, why wouldn't it? These days lots of people do manage to accommodate that within their relationship. There is a lot more possibility,
I suppose. But are you saying then, I mean, I know you're not saying this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, are you saying then that bisexual people can't then be monogamous with the one sex that they're with / gender that they're with?
No, an awful lot of people do manage that. Yeah. But I look at my context. People are coming to see me when they have a problem. So I see people where that is becoming an issue. So I'm skewed towards it being a problem rather than, basing this on any research, because there isn't that much research about when it works. Yeah, but at some point, for an awful lot of people, they say, do you know what? I'm not actually bisexual. I'm actually gay. Or they say, you know what? I want to continue to develop this aspect of myself. Now, I also know, and I have worked with a lot of couples where they have said, that's it now. I've tried it. I've done it. And I'm that's as far as it goes. Yeah. But then I don't see their future, do I?
No, exactly.
So all I know is that's where they get to.
It's always useful to remember this with this podcast. Mum is seeing the people where things aren't going, they're going wrong. That's why they come to see Mum. Always good to think.
Would you say it's, don't look at it that way. I mean, I don't look at it as it's going wrong. It's changing, where things are changing.
Yes.
I mean, I think we should sort of qualify that, because I certainly wouldn't see that. I mean, I wouldn't see this relationship absolutely as going wrong or at all. It's in fact the opposite. He's
this
able
is so
to,
positive that we have this new conundrum.
He's felt it's not even that.
I'm trying to find ways of saying problem without.
He's felt able to talk about this to her, which is a massive plus in the beginning, isn't it?
Incredible.
And they're doing all right as they are. And I mean, actually, I think neither of them are going to get everything they want in the way they want it, because if he wants to be able to explore sex with men and still have her and the marriage and the babies and all of that probably isn't going to happen. And she probably isn't going to find that he goes off and tries this out and gives it up. I mean, he might,
but
you can't future-proof it. You
Yeah.
can't say he's not going to then change his mind again.
But maybe you can after the fact and have that conversation. But this comes back to my question that I need to. This is the one that I was going to ask you again and say, answer it straight. God damn it.
Okay.
Should she be doing this? Should she? She says she's a big supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. Should she be this martyr? Should she throw herself and the relationship potentially on the sword?
She's not a martyr. She's not a martyr. And as I say, you know, there will be some developmental benefits for her as well, even if it's painful. They found one another for a reason. You know, however difficult this is massive stuff. This is her taking control. And if I was her, I'd be thinking back, when in my life did I not feel in control? Maybe this is my time to make up for that.
Wow, this is such big. This is so big. This question has lived up to all my wildest dreams. I could not tell you reading this how many questions it throws up, how much of a crazy thing this is. This is amazing because you're so right. I mean, there's that underpinning this as well, which I didn't even think of. Which maybe there's something going on there, but also it is this thing of like, I think there's going to be people listening to this going, she shouldn't have to do this. She should say, listen, if you want to get with guys, we're either done or you stick to me and you just, and we're in this, you know, if you're serious, you just stick with me and we'll do some pegging and maybe I'll put on a lower voice while we do it. You know, I know that sounds facetious, but like, honestly, for some people, that's what they'll be saying.
Hasn't she? She's done that. She's tried that. They've done that.
Yeah.
They're all, I mean, you know, good for them. That's great.
Oh, it's incredible.
But
honestly, this is
you know,
so
maybe
good.
Enjoyed it too much. You know, it's
well, yeah, but yeah, and sorry, and I brought that onto the table of being sort of pejorative about pegging being a sort of homoerotic thing. But you know, some people would, and even she sort of says, you know, we've tried stuff, aka pegging. Okay, let me ask you this. So this course of action being like, he wants to do this thing, and her saying, okay, I think you should go and try it. Is that the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think so.
Fuck, that's crazy. So people listen to this. If their partner comes to them and says, hey, you know, listen, I feel like I want to sleep with a man. I don't know, but it's the right thing for her, isn't it? It's the right thing for her because she wants to give it every chance. There are some people who would say, and she wants to help him.
Well, yes, but there are people
who
would, yes, there are people who would say though, I need to protect myself. I can't be in a relationship with you while I know you're doing this. And if you're going to go off and try this, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. And that would be the right thing for them because it would just be too painful. It's still a way of taking control. Whatever I don't think there is a right and wrong answer ever for this kind of thing because you have to do what's right for you. And, you know, with a lot of relationships, when it comes to the crunch point, it's been building up to this the whole time. This is what the relationship's been building to. And it sounds a bit odd, but, you know, you look back on it and it's been a great relationship.
Yeah.
You know, what is there to complain about? And you're going to be friends going forward. And, this is a big hump and it's going to be painful for both of them. But whichever way it goes, they'll have learnt so much.
You could end this and get married and be the closest you've ever fucking been. There's another world where it doesn't go that way and you are best friends.
And you're still the closest
you've ever been.
Yeah.
Like, this could be so positive.
Either way.
All I want to underline, though, is this person is so fucking pure and they are taking control of this situation and they are doing all this for their partner and they are putting so much on the line here. And I just want to say your intentions feel so noble and so good, and you seem like such a screwed on, really lovely person who is taking their emotions so heavily into account here and being so rational about this scenario. And I think we should all applaud you.
I think so, but I think also we should point out that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes and how difficult this is.
Oh yeah, she's a total bitch. Behind the scenes,
no,
she's a total bitch.
No, she's not. Don't even joke about that.
Sorry,
what I mean is, it's not. I mean, it's
I hope
not,
she found that funny.
I don't. I'm sure she didn't. But I think it doesn't come easy. And also, if somebody were to say, absolutely not, you know, you must be joking. You've led me on. This is not funny. I never want to see you again. That might be what they needed to do. That might be what they were building up to. That might be that kind of all-out rejection might have been what that relationship actually needed. You know, there is no easy one-size-fits-all That's the point. And, people who say, well, you ought to be responding in this way, they're thinking that there is a sort of, rule from somewhere which is organic and natural and what we should obviously do. Well, there isn't.
There isn't.
It's down to the individuals. I would really like to hear how woman 29 straight Essex feels about this conversation and what we've said, and maybe the boyfriend as well, and what happened. And we'd love to know what happens next.
This, more so than any question we've ever had in our entire lives, needs a follow-up, pup.
All right.
No, come on, Mum. This is the longest question. Like, we've talked about this for almost half an hour.
Yeah, but don't put pressure on them that they might decide they want to go
Actually,
private
you are right.
now.
Yeah.
So don't, it's a bit...
That's so true. Sorry, I need to rein it in.
Calm down.
I just think it's the most amazing question. I've loved it for so many reasons. It's an incredible conundrum.
I think
this person
Diggs
seems
has had
incredible.
a particular form of self-development going on here. So you're doing a really good job.
Exactly. But also, ladies and gents, and our lovely non-binary folk at home, let us know what you think about this as well. Where do you stand it? Because like I say, there's going to be people who go, she shouldn't have to do this. And there's other people that go, God, isn't she amazing? Isn't he lucky? I know they're going to smash this, whatever the outcome. So, wow, let's have a break. And I think we'll have time for maybe one more question.
Okay.
That. Welcome back to the Real Sex Education After School. Wow. I don't know if I just want to make people aware that I really enjoyed that question. I don't think they were. I don't think they know yet.
Don't think there's much doubt about that.
Okay, good. Well, that's good. That's fine. Okay, let's have one more question for today. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, that anonymous Google form in the bio of this episode and our social media channels. And this one comes from non-binary 17, bisexual, USA, New Mexico. They say, hello, I've been a long-time fan of your podcast, and I truly admire the service that you have done for people. Very kind. Mum doesn't seem to admire what I'm doing right now, but there you go. I have learned so much from your podcast, and it's one of my favourite things to listen to while walking my dog.
Oh, interrupt, and let's hear where else people listen to this podcast.
Yeah, please. If people could tell us where they're listening to it, either in the world, Essex, UK, New Mexico, in the USA, but also what you're doing when you listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Are you in the bath? Washing yourself with a.
Now we're getting rude.
Sponge. Sorry.
We possibly don't need to know that level of detail.
I would like to.
Anyway, why did I interrupt?
Okay, let's get back on track because, Jesus. I am curious to know the reasons why power dynamics in sex is so popular. I found that I do not enjoy the idea of power dynamics on either end. I get more pleasure when both parties are on equal footing. I get discouraged though, as oftentimes in media there is usually a dominant person and a submissive person. This has made it difficult for me to imagine sex in any other way. How can we encourage a shift towards more equitable portrayals of intimacy and connection? Fascinating question.
But I'm not so sure that this is true. I mean, I think certainly in porn, there's often a power dynamic, and that even in, erotica, there's often a bit of that. And in romance, there's often a misunderstanding, isn't there? That where people don't get together because of some kind of thing that they hate each other. To begin with, and all of that. That's the classic, isn't it? And then they sort of fall in love. That's always been a thing. And I think the power dynamic thing and the mistake thing, that's all part of the fun. That's part of the story. It's not necessarily what you expect in real life.
Right.
In real life, maybe people would be more direct. And I don't think you need a power dynamic at all. I think you're absolutely right. And in some ways, it's up to you to make sure that there isn't one. I mean, if there's stuff that you object to, then you say it and you take your power.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting is, I wonder whether this is under the same umbrella, but I've heard a number of friends of mine, these ones male, who with their partners, talking about the fact that at first, when they've started seeing people, and this is even in sort of friends with benefits scenarios, but they have talked about the fact that there is this power dynamic and they are the dominant one and the girl that they're with is the submissive one. And it plays out like that. However, after things have gotten a bit more, either just they're more committed to each other, or things have just gotten a bit more comfortable in their friends with benefits situation, they actually coalesce into a new type of sex, which is a lot more intimate, a lot slower, a lot more passionate. And I think they would argue like the power dynamics have floated away, where things were a lot more like, yeah, bend over, girl, at first, because that's the sort of, I know, sorry, just quoting, but that was the sort of fun power dynamic sub-dom thing that was going on at first. That has slowly dissipated, and actually then it sort of comes to a close thing. So I wonder whether maybe this power dynamic shift could be down to that. It could be down to your closeness with the other person.
Well, I think a lot of relationships also begin with sex these days rather than friendship, so that you're in a situation with somebody where the sex is the context rather than the relationship is the context.
Yes.
And so while the sex is the context, you're going for the things that turn you on. So that sub-dom thing may be something that turns you on.
Yeah.
And you may be moving in kink circles where there's more of that sort of thing as well. And that's not necessarily how it is for everybody either. So, maybe widen your circle of friends. There's also the sub-dom thing with, anal sex with gay guys.
Well, okay, really quickly, because this is very, very pertinent to today. So I know a guy who maybe about 2 years ago now, he came out as bisexual. He'd been having sex with women his entire life. He's a verse, meaning that he's not a top, he's not a bottom. He will do either in permitting. But he was saying that when he turns up to these guys' houses, sometimes you won't discuss what's going to happen beforehand, and you will talk to them, and you will sort of, without even saying it, you will notice a power dynamic. And sometimes if the other person seemed more quote unquote powerful, they would then just assume the role of top, and that would just happen. If he came in and he was a bit more power seeming, he would then assume the role of top. And if it was equilibrium, he said, just without even speaking, we would just suck each other off, and that would be that. I found that absolutely fascinating. So there are power dynamics, but with some people, it's even unspoken that if things are quote unquote equal, then you do find a way around it, and that could be the same with this person.
Well, one thing that we ought to say is you should be discussing things before you get, not just leaving it to nuance. That it should be talked about.
Yeah.
So for safety's
that's what
sake,
sexting's
also,
for. Come on, guys.
I know that's the whole point of Grindr and everything. But when you're saying, when I turn up at this person's house, you shouldn't really be doing that. I mean, I think we need to say for safety's sake.
I completely agree, but I'm just saying.
So I'm just saying it because
quite right.
We public service here.
Yeah.
But this works when you are comfortable with both roles. But there are an awful lot of people who are not comfortable with both roles, who are newer to sex in general. So potentially non-binary 17 bisexual from New Mexico may well not have that much experience. And I think then when you're in a situation where you find that something is expected of you which you're not used to, it can be much more problematic. It may not be something you want, you may not feel secure. So at the moment, I think a lot of sex therapists are seeing people who are being expected to be in top roles when they're not used to it, or bottom roles when they're not used to it. And in a top role, there's much more concern because if you're anxious, then you may lose your erection, that sort of thing. So,
right, yeah.
So this is not just as straightforward as it sounds, as your story sounds, because you've got to be quite experienced to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, but for people, at the other end of their sexual career, it can be really difficult and it can put them off.
So then to answer their question, how can we encourage a shift towards more equitable portrayals of intimacy and connection? I guess you just talk about what you're going to do with someone before you do it.
Yeah, and if what you want to do is, oral sex rather than anything else, then make that clear. Make that clear in words rather than nuance.
And even if the perception is that it is everywhere, then you can also, in the same way that you don't want it to be that way, I'm sure you'll meet people and talk to them, and if you bring this up to them, they'll be like, yeah, shit, that sounds great. I don't want that either. Because also, I know a lot of men, for example, who that whole dom thing, so straight guys who like the whole dom thing, they just feel like they have to assume that role because that's what they just think is what they have to do.
Well, they see it in porn and stuff, but again, that's fantasy. That's fantasy.
Yeah.
In real life, people are likely to want something more equal.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to do things like be dominant, submissive, it's a game, in which case you should be talking about it beforehand. There should be safe words. You should not get into that scenario at all.
Yeah, and like all good games, there should be rules.
There should be rules, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, personally, I think if I was 17 these days, I'd be more interested in slow dating, making friends, getting there a bit more gradually, rather than just feeling that you have to be having. I mean, you might want to be having sex. You might be just wanting to have sex to sort of validate your sexuality or whatever. But maybe take it a bit slower. You're smirking again.
It's because I'm just thinking back to, I wasn't 17, to be fair, I had a girlfriend at 17. But when I was 19 and I was single at university, and I thought, here we go. This is what I've been looking for, because now I'm off the leash. It's going to be Sex City up in this bedroom. And every night I'd go out on the town. And before, we went out on the town, I'd clean my bedroom because obviously someone would be coming back there and we'd be getting it on. Not a single person slept in that bed except for me.
Good. Pleased to hear it.
Yeah. So,
right. But
it's
nice
not all
to
as
know
cracked
you
up.
cleaned your bedroom.
It's the only reason why I clean it. Look at my bedroom now. It's a bloody shithole.
No, it's all right.
Another reason to look at YouTube, another reason to subscribe, to follow wherever you're listening to this or watching this podcast now, because we have had another great fun episode. I don't know if you could tell that I've really enjoyed it. Is that obvious?
Oh, just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. Well, thank you so much, Non-Binary 17 Bisexual USA, New Mexico, and thank you so much to Woman 29 Straight, Essex, UK. You can be one of those amazing listeners who writes in a question anonymously on our Google form. Once again, bio of this episode and our social media channels. We're at the RSC Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Mum, any final word before we go from you?
Bye.
Perfect. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.